So we're going to be talking about this hidden gem of a classic, which is both strange and weird, and also kind of amazing. Sgt Kabukiman NYPD. So I didn't know this, but until the very end. But this movie was produced by Lloyd Kaufman. And after watching this whole movie, it just made sense because he produced like the cult classic Toxic Avenger. 1, 2, and 3. I don't know how many of those are, but everybody knows kind of like the vibes of Toxic Avenger is like an indie, underground, kind of grungy movie of a superhero, an unlikely superhero crime fighter kind of thing. So it made a lot of sense that this movie was made by that guy. But Sergeant Kabuki Man is just like all over the place. I have not only scribbled furiously trying to like make all these notes, but not just one, but like 5 pages of trying to figure out like what's going on.
Yeah, I didn't have that many, but I still had some notes.
I mean, right off the bat, it starts off pretty crazy because it just like that guy Rembrandt, he's one of the main antagonists. There's a whole bunch. There's like 12 of them. I don't know. The dude has a posse. But the main antagonist, or one of the main antagonists, is his name is Rembrandt. He wears this awful blonde wig, and he's supposed to be some kind of like brilliant artist type. He's just really just a psychopath. It opens up with him showing up to the old kabuki master guy's house and his wife and children. Right off the bat, shows one of the most disturbing scenes I think in the whole film, where it doesn't quite show it, but it insinuates that he kills the children. He just like comes out of the room with a bloody sword, and yeah, that's crazy. Kills mom and dad and the children and everything. I was like, wow.
Well, I mean, he in the beginning part of that scene, like he sitting there laughing with the kids and they're having a good time, and then he just, without showing it, he shoves like the large knife thing in their direction and smiles. But then the next part, when he goes into the parents' room, that's when the knife is bloody, and then obviously
Right.
it's like, yeah, he killed the kids.
It's so crazy.
Yep.
And when he kills the father, I swear it really looked like they killed that
Yeah,
guy.
they probably found some dude on the street. Was like, hey man, you want to make $20 in this movie? And they just killed some hobo or something.
Yeah, it looked like he really
Pretty
did
sure
kill
they
him.
hired a lot of vagrants for this movie to help give them jobs, because
I think
yeah,
so,
this was definitely a lot of people's first acting jobs.
for sure.
I mean, overall, this movie.
Well, the other, so the main one of the female protagonist, the Kabuki man's love interest, lady
Lotus.
Lotus, her grandfather straight up looks like a
Oh yeah,
homeless
they
man
for sure.
that they
He is homeless, and they just he
yeah,
did drugs.
and they paid him to eat worms.
Yeah. No, he probably brought those with him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he already
already
had them.
had
They
the
were like, hey,
worms.
let's just make that part of the storyline there.
Listen, he won't put the worms down. We have to work it
Yeah,
in
that's why they
somehow.
only had the worms like in the one shot, really, because he ate them all. Because
And it's crazy. And another thing they open up with right off the bat, like no explanation or nothing, these two corrupt like businessmen just doing coke off of a car, and that's like what the dead woman, the mother of those two dead children, she just falls onto this car.
actually, she doesn't fall on the car; she falls onto one of them,
Oh yeah, she
and
falls
it's
onto one
very
of them. Okay,
clearly she was off screen, like maybe on a step stool, and just kind of jumped naked onto this dude. Like it was
right,
from a sideways angle. I mean, so overall, this
right,
whole movie, just to get this out there, this whole movie, it I'm not trying to knock it entirely. It's not like it's a fantastic movie, but it's so bad it's good.
yeah,
It's not for
exactly.
everybody, but those who do watch it are probably going to be sitting there going, probably should have taken drugs. But the
Yeah,
movie really tries to be like Naked Gun.
I think if you get drunk enough, you'll really like Kabuki
Yeah,
Man.
it's definitely something to at least see what we're talking about. For those who care and those who may like the other movie that Sophie mentioned, the Toxic Avenger. Um, it's kind of along those same lines of just complete ridiculousness, and every scene, it's like they're trying to have just some random, knee slappers while having the storyline
Hmm.
going. But it to me, it just kind of failed to hit the mark on a lot of it. But it was overall, I mean, they got the story
They
across. So I just wanted to throw that out
right.
there.
And another thing is like I'm so confused with his character kind of because he's trying to be Kabuki Man, right? Kabuki theater is like not at all what Kabuki Man is because he's like part clown, and he refers to his outfit sometimes as a dress. So he's part, I don't know, part cross dressing to him, and then part clown, and then part murderer, and also part hero.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it here more in a minute, but he just goes off like on a hero rampage, just killing some but not others, and to him it's just okay. While fighting
Right.
crime that make
Right.
any damn sense.
Yeah. It also seems like they're super self aware, like what you're saying.
Oh, they're super self-aware. They break the fourth wall numerous times.
And like they kind of cut to like the Kabuki theater because the one of the main antagonists, the big bad guy who has the posse of bad guys, he sets up this kind of like situation where Rembrandt, the crazy guy, can kill Grandpa so that he can get so Rembrandt can get the Kabuki powers. And like there's this batshit crazy Kabuki theater thing happening. In a way, I kind of wish that this batshit version of a Kabuki theater, I wish it was real because it's super weird. Oh yeah, and when all the commotion starts happening, when they start to like turn and start shooting everybody, the crowd is just like clapping. They're like, "Yeah, this is entertainment."
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, and so I forget Kabuki Man's name when he's a cop. What I don't
It's
remember.
Harry Griswold.
Harry Griswold. He shoots somebody's dick off,
Yeah,
RoboCop style.
old Asian grandpa who had the Kabuki powers was supposed to be giving it to the Asian dude in the beginning, the Japanese guy who got killed by Rembrandt. Supposed to be passing it down to him to prevent the evil at the end of the movie, but he gets shot, and while Sergeant Griswold kind of steps in to try and stop these bad guys, he gives it to him, the power to him. So right after
Right.
that exchange, he shoots like one of the gunmen in the dick, just like in RoboCop. For anyone who's seen that, he just brah, shoots him in the
Right. And
dick.
apparently passing the gift is also making out with mouth worms. He's like vomiting the worms into his
Mm-hmm.
mouth.
Which again, I think that this homeless man they've picked for this scene just did that on his own. He just ad libbed it, and they were just like, "Fuck it, we gotta keep that in. We gotta rewrite part of
Yep.
the story to make that make sense."
Yeah, and so that turned out to be like a massive failure by the part of the bad guys, and they didn't get what they wanted. And so they go back to the main bad guy's office. This poor guy named Skipper, I'm pretty sure this is his first job ever, acting. He just gets shot in the head, just point blank. And the fucking Rembrandt guy, he's always eating these like puffball, snowball pastries, like constantly throughout the whole movie. He's eating them. As they put his head on top of a newspaper, he dabs his puffball pastry in his gunshot wound on his head, and then he eats it.
Yeah, it was pretty gross.
Crazy. Crazy. He just does the weirdest things. But yeah, one of my favorite scenes is like when what you said, Harry Griswold's quote unquote cop apartment. It's just his damn apartment is just filled with I don't know 1,000 cans of Pabst Blue Ribbon beer cans everywhere.
It's like a hoarder's nightmare for anyone that's like seen that show. It's just there's clear pathways to walk like around, but in all the
Yeah.
crevices and stuff around, there's just waist high cans, and it's just
Yeah.
playing on that trope of like cops who are just heavy drinkers when
Right.
they're not on the job or even on the job. It's a cliche.
Right. Yeah. There's quite a few tropes in this movie, like um, Harry Griswold's boss. Um, it's just I don't know. I feel like every cop movie, like everyone's boss is always like I don't know what kind of role is he?
It it's always like an angry black captain.
Captain. That's right. It's always the black captain. There's like a lot of cop movie tropes in this film. They didn't even really think hard about it.
Yeah, they were just taking a lot of cues from other movies. Again, I mean, I'm gonna say it's like trying to be like Naked Gun. You know, they were just trying to
Yeah.
have so much ridiculousness but that makes sense for the scene. But it for me, it didn't really quite hit a majority of it. That's just
Hmm.
me personally. But
Yeah. Well, speaking of Captain and all the scenes where he's talking to his captain, I've been trying to think of what type of music that was for like the since the beginning of the movie because I know this wasn't a really important part for me to mention the all the background scenes of The Office.
well,
Um,
let's tie that in with what you're about to say. So after the first interaction that Sergeant Griswold has getting the kabuki powers from the old man, the next
mhm,
day he goes to his police precinct to talk to his captain, and
right.
that's funneling in what you're about to say, because
The Western
yeah, because
saloon
every time they go
music.
to this precinct, it's kind of like an SNL skit. So there's always like you have your background actors that are kind of just there to fill the void, but in
Mhm.
this one, they're just doing so much random stuff every single time. It's different.
And it's always like just a couple of seconds of movement and they repeat
Yeah,
it.
like they're on a loop. And
Yeah.
go ahead with what you were gonna say about the music.
Oh, it's Western saloon music. It's like if you can imagine it, like it's just imagine you're at an old Western saloon and there's some random old man playing a piano. That's what it sounds like. It's very
Yeah,
comical.
you walk in, just boom, and they tip your hat, morning, and then you just got the
Why did they think
I,
that? Like, why did they think that was a good
for
choice?
all I know, I mean that could have just been a placeholder for some other kind of music, and they just forgot to change it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
But like in the very first scene when you see the background in the precinct, they've got like a whole slew of like criminals. I'm assuming they're all criminals being
It's like a Renaissance
like being
painting.
processed by other officers. But at the rate that the arrestees are being like moved around, it's like the officers have super strength. You know what I mean? Like they're just being thrown
Right.
around all unnecessarily, and but no one's paying any attention to it. It's just like like there's zero gravity around. They're just being tossed and slung around, and of
Right.
course everything's just going on. And then you got these two, the again another cliche. Like you got those two officers that are always like, you know, uh, like the class clowns. They're just picking
Mhm.
fun and joking around and ha ha ha. We're the other officers. Blah blah blah.
Oh, yeah, that guy that's always eating the,
Yeah, the donuts and
donuts.
then the other his little buddy that he's always with.
Right.
Yeah, they're just that's their whole
That's the
part.
other that whole, fat cop, skinny cop thing.
Good cop, bad cop, fat cop, skinny cop. I'm the funny good one.
I'm the fat bad one.
Sergeant Kabuki, fat cop.
So, like, after that whole scene, of course, he's, like, slowly transforming, and, his captain's giving him shit because, once again, he's, quote, unquote, "wearing a dress" and, like, wearing the sandals. They have this pretty cool scene where they use some, like, special effects where his shoe starts melting like wax. So it's trying to show that, like, um a lot of times where he's just randomly transforming into the Kabuki Man. But sometime after that, it kind of fast forwards to the main bad guy again, and what looks like he's like having a really weird, awkward, crowded blowjob for some reason, and actually she's just like polishing his shoes.
It's kind of like Van Wilder in the early opening parts of that when that Asian lady, it appears, is giving him a fellatio, as the young would say.
The young don't say that.
At one point they did. Yeah, giving him a blowjob, but as it turns out, she's just sitting there hemming up his pants, and it's the same thing here. By all appearances, that's what's going on. He even makes a comment,
Right,
not too hard, but she's just polishing his shoes.
right.
Yeah,
Innocent,
and see,
supposedly.
that's one of the jokes that makes sense. Like maybe
Right,
not for the whole movie. It's kind of like a random out of the woods for this movie, but it actually was funny, and it was like, whoa, hold on a minute, what's happening here? And then boom, it had good setup, had a good punchline, and the payoff was good. It was funny.
they're just throwing a lot of shit at the wall and just hoping it sticks. Really, with the jokes.
Yeah, and another way to describe this, it's kind of like a precursor to Family Guy. It's
Yeah,
like, hey, you remember that one time? And then it's just some random ass story that has absolutely nothing to do with the main overall arc of the episode. That's essentially
right.
what this movie is, but like an hour and something minutes.
I've been saying, like, I personally think this show would have been way better as a cartoon, probably like on Adult Swim or
Yeah,
something.
if it was in a show format versus a movie, I think it would have, at least for me, been a little bit better because I think they would have been able to slow down a minute and kind of expand with
Right,
everything. I think trying to sum it all up, both the actual plot of the movie with all the comedy they're trying to throw in, with maybe even some serious moments, they just couldn't do it in this form
right,
factor, in my opinion.
right. No, it was kind of rushed.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I really think that none of the scenes truly had that much depth to them anyways, so it had to be rushed.
No, you're right. You're right. Not knocking it entirely. It had to happen.
Right.
Um,
So they kind of like fast forwarded. I don't know which scene that you were thinking of, but I was thinking of La Rosa, the lady cop.
Connie. I
Isn't that
think.
her name?
Yeah, that was her last name, LaRosa. Connie LaRosa. Yeah.
Okay, lady detective. He's obviously like into her and stuff and like trying to impress her by going jogging, but they just like okay, so they go jogging. She's highly suggestive to him, and but he gets tired or whatever, and so she keeps on
Again,
running.
cliche comedy. Police movie. He gets out of shape quick,
Right.
out of
He's
breath.
very out of shape, yeah. Um and so La Rosa just like finishes her jog without him. And these fucking bad people like come out of nowhere and just like fucking rape her. It's
Well, first they
insane.
try and attack her. So
Okay.
first, this Contra reject looking dude with like the blonde hair and the bandana and everything, straight up looks like
Yeah,
he just ripped out of Contra. Like
right.
they all start trying to attack her, but she's doing a pretty good job of defending herself. Then one of them gets a little cheap shot in over like the back of her head or something. Then that's when the attack really starts getting bad. Because then they take her to the ground, and then there's just another excuse for some boobies, which there's like different booby scenes, by the way. Um,
And there's a bunch of people in
yeah,
that part
bunch of people
too.
all just, oh well, unfortunate.
Oh,
And then then they, after they ripped her shirt in half, then they take her off somewhere, and then
freaking Harry pulls a hot dog out of his pocket randomly.
well, you don't literally see it, but I mean it's the only explanation because he's just randomly eating a hot dog, and then
Right,
he hears the
right,
commotion, tries to go help, can't seem to run up a you know 5-degree angle, and keeps tripping.
right.
Gets to them, of which you're not seeing anything too physical as far as the rapes concern, but it's enough to yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
enough to suggest
insinuated.
that's exactly what's happening. They got people positioned in front, to block that on purpose, which is, I mean, I'm fine with that. Um, but then as soon as he gets there, freaking
This
it
is
like Dollar General version Spider-Man jumps out of the tree for no fucking reason. Like, oh man, you know what would be a good idea if I went into this tree? Because I just have a feeling I'm gonna need to jump down and tackle somebody. And yeah, that's exactly what happens, and just tackles Harry, and then they start whooping
this
his
is
ass.
Kabuki Man's right. This is Kabuki Man's first
A
scene
full
though as a
transition,
hero.
also.
Right. His first scene as a hero.
Yep.
He goes into the weird Kabuki Man circus clown
Cocoon. I'm gonna call it
hole
cocoon.
cocoon thing. It's a giant, like, it looks like a circus umbrella butthole thing. He goes inside of it. I think the most disturbing part of the whole thing is transforming into Kabuki Man means his hair forces itself to grow out. That's just weird.
Yep. Grow out and then fold itself around and apply its own
Pop out.
like glue or whatever because it's so
Yeah.
like shiny, weird.
I'd like to know more in depth about, like, does he feel pain during any of this?
I don't know. He does make a lot of weird noises that are either concern or pain. I don't know. Can't really be for
Right.
sure.
And then he just starts singing opera, like, after he
Yeah,
comes
after he
out.
transforms, it's like they didn't understand what Kabuki meant, and so he just starts full
I
on
know.
singing like, you know, I'm trying to even recall a freaking opera song, but just imagine opera. Everybody, just go YouTube some
Yeah.
opera. That's exactly what he starts singing.
I was gonna say, once again, I feel like they are very confused about what Kabuki theater even
Yeah,
is.
but it's exactly what I was saying earlier too. It's they're trying to do that slapstick comedy of ha 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 ha. See, that's not what it's really supposed to be, but that's what we're gonna make it. But it just doesn't make any sense because even comedy has to have
No.
some sense of how it flows.
Right. Yeah. And so he starts beating up all these dudes, and I think the most insane part is, like, when he actually freaking kills somebody, he stomps a dude's head to the ground and it, like,
It
explodes.
like explodes, but then craters into the ground also, and he does it several times, not just once. He does it several times. And the second person that he killed this dude first or before this guy, but uh,
Oh, the
yeah, like
chopsticks.
launched like a missile amount of chopsticks out of his arm, and it just pierces
Right.
this dude and skewers him alive. They eventually say 3 people were killed, but I don't know who the third would have been. I don't recall anyone else, so it
I don't
must
recall
have been an
either.
off-screen death. I'm assuming, but the public were okay with it. They were like, "He only killed 3 people, but I feel safer."
Kabuki Man doesn't care about killing. He tries to do his best killing
Yep.
in the most cinematic and comical
Mm-hmm.
ways. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah, because as
insane.
Kabuki Man, he has a lot of powers, kind of like the mask. So just think of the
Yeah.
mask like your imagination, I guess, is your limit.
Harry even kind of looks like what's his face from The Mask?
Uh, well, Jim Carrey playing Stanley Ipkiss,
Stanley Ipkiss. That's right. I forgot his name. Crazy hair, out of shape kind of guy, kind of a
but when he
loser.
transforms, then he's like, "Hey, I'm super cool."
Right. He's a unsuspecting hero type. That's that trope. Like they're always just like pieces of crap and all of a sudden they become a hero. Yeah. He looks like Stanley Ipkiss. He's what did you say? He's recalled Jim Carrey. He's
Yeah, he's not
defective.
a dollar store Jim Carrey. He's like the recalled version.
But yeah, I have on my notes here another part that I think is like really noteworthy and crazy is when he confronts some of the bad guys, which there's a group of the other bad guys, which are part of the whole crew, but they take shelter in this like base that's also a church. So he goes in there to confront this pastor guy or this reverend or whatever. He can't even control his Kabuki man powers. So he's like grunting and like about to shit his pants or whatever, trying to turn into
He's about
Kabuki
to
man.
kabuki his pants.
Yeah, he's about to kabuki his pants, trying to turn into Kabukiman, and he turns into a full clown instead. And I think this part is insane because it's like that movie with Bill Murray. Because he's like, he comes in there and he starts like saying, "Put your hands up" or whatever, and he's got a gun and he's just a crazy clown man with a gun.
Are you talking
What's
about
that
Quick
movie with
Change?
Bill Murray? Yes,
Another
Quick
good movie.
Change. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not many clown movies with guns. Like, it's very obscure.
Yeah, if the clowns had anything to say about it, they would they'd get more guns out there.
Yeah. So he has like this whole fight scene with this dude, and of course he's extremely scared because who would not be? But yeah, I forget if what happens next is what I think, but in my notes I have that he steals a kid's
Yeah.
bike. He commandeers his vehicle,
Well, when he
right?
does that, he shows the kid his ID and badge.
Hmm.
But the funny part about that, and again, it's one of the few like really good subtle comedy jokes that they put in there, is when he shows the kid the ID and badge. The ID is now the clown version of himself. It's not. Yeah, it was like a little detail,
It's
but it
so
makes it
small and
really
great,
funny when you see it. And
right?
that also plays later on too, because every single time he transforms like this, he's constantly having to prove who he is, because the police show up late, of course.
Oh my
Again,
God,
another movie trope of like police movies, they show up late.
right?
He's always having to, I know it's me, Sergeant Griswold, and he
It's
has to pull out his ID. So
this time when he showed it, they were like, "Oh hell
yeah,
no!"
that's how they've been identifying him, is because it matches his picture.
Right. And he breaks the fourth wall a lot, like when he goes back to talk to his captain. At this point, the captain is just like, "No, I can't handle this. Give me your badge and your
Well,
gun."
so there's actually one part I want to mention before that happens, and it's after like the chase scene when he borrows the kid's bike, and so
Mhm.
eventually he somehow gets on a unicycle.
Oh yeah.
Somehow. Um, Again, I think this is the same time I had to use a bathroom break. I think both times. So we've watched this movie twice now. So I think both times I used the bathroom in the same spot. But so he's now on a unicycle. The bad guys have commandeered vehicles. They're chasing him in vehicles. He gets to a kid's birthday party who are waiting for a clown, and
Right.
all the parents are drunk on wine, and they're basically like, where the hell is this clown? All the kids are disappointed and like depressed because the clown's not there.
Right.
He's running up. They see him. They're like, oh, there he is. Well, at least he's hurrying. So he's running towards them, but he's just trying to get away. They think he's there for the party. So they're like, hey, you need to be doing all this. You said you do this. And then the bad
Right.
guys get there and they're on foot. They've run up to there and they start pulling out their guns and just opening fire into this kid's like birthday party.
Yeah.
They
Kid's birthday
thankfully don't hit
party.
any of them, but the kids just start going crazy, like thinking it's awesome, like woo, yeah, woo, like
Right.
gunshots.
Best
Yeah,
clown
like it
ever.
was the representation of what Europeans think happen here all the time. Just kids' parties,
Right.
guns, shooting at them. Yeah, woo, that's what we want. And yeah, and one of the kids is just like, "Where'd you get the guns?" And then that in the next scene after that, then now you're in the captain's office.
Right. And he's so mad at him at this point. He basically tells him he's fired, like to take his badge and
Mm-hmm.
gun and stuff. All the while, like Harry, as I don't know what we would call him, clown clown man, because he's not Kabuki Man still, and he's doing all these crazy little clown tricks on him while he's just trying to reprimand him.
Yeah, the infinite scarfs out of the arm.
Right. And it's so sad because he can't even stop. He can't even help it. Like he doesn't know how to turn it
Yeah,
off.
and that was also one of the times he breaks the fourth wall talking to the audience.
Right.
And I think,
Sometime after that is when we meet this like crazy little monkey.
yeah, so I think the following scene is where he pretty much realizes he needs to uh, get training on how to use his powers, because this was the one time that he thought he could control it, and it backfired,
Right.
and then he almost got killed because he couldn't control it the way he needed to. So that's
Right.
where, yeah, now he's gonna be at Lotus's apartment.
Right, and she's like a master of some kind of martial arts, and they have like this scene where she absolutely demolishes his balls in order to gain like dominance over him as his master, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
she develops their relationship of master and student.
Kabuki
Yeah, pretty
slave.
much. And then, but when he first goes to the apartment, the doors open for him, but it's like a little baboon, right?
Yeah, who
Yeah,
talks?
well, not like full words, but he like mumbles. And what it was reminiscent to me of was Tattoo from Fantasy Island, the old '70s show, because
Hmm.
he's kind of like that. You know, he wears little suits and is a little helper. I mean, he's practically, the plane away from being Tattoo himself.
He has a freaking backstory too. He was like born in the back of a
Yeah. Oh,
Toyota.
his name is Toyota. Thank you. I forgot.
Yeah,
Yeah. See, Tattoo Toyota thing. Yeah,
same
they just made
thing.
it Japanese.
Basically, they have like their little montage of like him training, and in order to complete his training, well, first he gets beat up by Lotus,
Yeah,
and then
so he's doing a handstand and she goes and like ropes his feet so he can't get down from being upside down and just
these,
begins to whack the shit out of his balls like you were saying.
yeah, and in order to complete his training at the end, he has to recite a haiku, like master the haiku, and that's how he can turn into Kabuki Man. And he does it really in like a silly way. He screams it. And so he turns into Kabuki Man finally, and he's ready to like fight crime. And she's like, "What do you see with with your Kabuki eyes?" And he's like, "Crime,
Corruption.
uh, corruption, and all kinds of stuff." Like, well, okay, that's kind of normal. So what else do you see with your Kabuki eyes?
Nothing. And that was it. He's hyper focused now on his police job.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So after that comes the best scene, like the best moments of this whole movie is the Kabuki Man hero montage. There's like no words. It's just all him fighting
Under
crime.
his theme song, I might add. They
Yes. Oh
spent
my
the
god.
money and time to have somebody actually write a theme song to this,
Yep.
which I'm
And
debating on whether or not I'm attaching it into this podcast
I,
to hear, but
I think you should at least like
I've been trying to see if the
5 seconds of
copyrights
it.
are even still held by anybody, but screw it. I mean, you need to
Okay.
at least hear this.
Or we
Well, yeah,
can
you know
post
what?
the YouTube
The link will
link.
be in the description, both in the podcast and on YouTube, guys.
You got to hear it. It's going to get stuck in your
Mm-hmm.
head. But this is the best couple of moments of this whole movie is the Kabuki Man hero montage. He does a couple of things here, like he does some kind of insignificant stuff like helping old ladies cross the street and doing yoga in the park and like does a bunch of insignificant stuff, but he also kills people.
Well, and he doesn't have any rhyme or reason as to who he kills. It's like, I feel like killing these people and then needlessly tying this person up in noodles. Like,
Right. First person, I think he pours hazardous
yeah.
waste, which we thought was hazardous waste, but I think it's actually wasabi
But
sauce.
it's got to be
It's
some
just
concoction that still wasn't very good because, I mean, the dude turned green and clearly was
right.
dead.
And he was screaming. Yeah. So he does the hazardous waste wasabi sauce on a guy and kills him. And this is the most amazing part. I say amazing, kind of sarcastically, but so he kills a pimp and a prostitute by turning them into fucking sushi and cutting them into 3 pieces.
Yeah. So, and I feel he committed murder here because
Oh, for
this
sure.
was just unnecessary for the prostitute because, in fact, she was
I know.
innocent. She,
She was
yeah, she
being
was
kidnapped by
an
him.
innocent in this. She's sitting there like on the like a boardwalk or something, and the
Yeah.
pimp comes over and like takes her money and is like, "Oh, this ain't enough," or what? I don't know. There's no words, so you just gotta infer what he was meaning. And um,
She pulls a knife
well,
on
at
him.
first he grabs her, and that's what he's doing. Like he's gonna take her, so she breaks free and grabs a knife in self-defense. Self-defense here. This is not up for debate. It's self-defense. And then that's when Kabuki Man comes out of nowhere, wraps them both in a big piece of seaweed, and then pulls out his sword and dice up, and then they're cut up into 3 pieces, and it's like body parts everywhere and shit.
It's so
Yep.
absurd. It's crazy. And then it cuts to another person, part of his Kabuki Man montage, a carjacker hilariously putting like no battery on board signs or like no engine on board or whatever. He puts these signs on the car. So Kabuki Man wants to put a stop to this guy, ties him up with noodles, doesn't hurt him at all, just leaves
Yeah,
him in the
puts him
car.
in the car all like creepily, like he gets assimilated into the car, but when he leaves the car, the dude's just tied up with ramen noodles in the passenger seat, alive.
Like I said, I wish this was an Adult Swim show. It would have been great.
Yeah.
And they have all these Batman-esque kind of like how Batman has like the Batman signal and it goes doo 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 doo. It kind of has this transition scene that's like super Batman-esque.
Yeah, like his Kabuki, I'm going to call it Kabuki symbol. It's
Yeah, the
basically
Kabuki
his
symbol.
face with his hair is like his Kabuki Man symbol. So yeah, it does like the
Right.
spinning Batman thing like you're talking about. And there's
Yeah.
fucking Scooby Doo music all the time, or like those sound effects, like when they're trying to run, like that happens too, all the
Right.
time.
Just towards the end of the Kabuki Man montage, he is about to meet the bad guy mob again, and there's this like truck coming, and it flattens him like a cartoon, and he just gets up.
Again, exactly like the mask.
Right. So, like, even Lotus admitted that Kabuki Man like can't withstand like a bunch of fatal injuries and stuff, and yet how come he can get flattened like a piece of paper and then just like stand up?
Yeah, like there is a limit to what he can take, but I guess truck ain't one of them.
Yeah.
But
So he goes into the church, and that reject Contra guy that you're
yeah,
talking about. I guess his name's
yep.
Jughead, but they always call him a weenie all the time. They're like, "Oh, you weenie." And so he's like, "Stop calling me a weenie." So Kabuki Man comes in and takes a picture of him with his giant, oversized, cartoonish
Clearly made
camera.
out of cardboard, by the way.
Right. His
Clearly made out
giant
of cardboard.
cartoon camera. And he turns the dude into real hot dogs.
Yeah, some grilled hot dogs and just left them in his shoes.
Yeah, and I feel like that's
And then
just sick.
he's still talking, like you hear him go, but in like a tiny little voice, like I guess I am a weenie.
He's got hot
Yeah,
dog
hot dog voice.
voices.
That's a filter for
And
Snapchat. Hot dog voice.
yeah, that's right. Or at least a TikTok
Yeah,
filter.
fuck TikTok.
Well, you know. And so they end up kind of running away from the bad guys, and they end up on the roof of the building. And this is where Kabuki Man kind of discovers one of his last powers that he has. He can freaking fly. And so they're trying not to get blown up by a rocket launcher because this is one of the things that Lotus says that he can't take that. He can't be blown up by a rocket launcher. And so they fly away and you can see the lines of where they picked him up. But yeah.
Yeah, the old hidden cables for flight. They only really use that twice and for like 4 seconds. The majority
Right.
of the flying parts, they're on some sort of scissor lift or something that they're
And
just
they
standing
cut the
on.
frame
Yeah,
just
they're cutting it
right.
out of frame and they're just kind of leaning in a way. It looks like they're flying, and then they speed it up so it doesn't look slow, but clearly you can tell this is taking like 20 minutes to just move them 30 feet.
Right.
So
Well, anyone that's been on a scissor lift knows it's really
yeah,
slow.
but yeah, that's how they're doing it, and it's
So as they're flying through the sky, this is another great scene. And I think that you missed it the first time. But so as Kabuki Man and Lotus are flying through the sky on their scissor lift, he just like fucking vomits gallons of bile like onto two corrupt businessmen. There's a theme here. He just does. I don't know. This whole city is just full of corrupt people and corrupt businessmen.
yeah, and his senses know it, and that's why it was just like, oh, hold on, I gotta make a bomb drop here. Yeah, I did miss it the first time.
Yeah, it was a lot
It
of
was.
vomit.
It was a pretty nasty amount.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
gross.
Um.
So like later, this is another great scene. So him and Lotus like develop a romantic relationship and stuff. And so he goes back like telling Lotus about like all the stuff that he's done and whatnot. And so they end up having sex and he literally just I don't know, like he transforms into Kabuki Man. He literally just goes Kabuki. Yeah.
Yeah, he pretty much Kabuki's all over her. If Kabuki was a verb for ejaculating.
Yep, he Kabukis everywhere.
Yeah.
So Lotus gets kidnapped, of course, because that's how these movies go. And because his powers are useless without love, according to the movie, he turns back into his regular detective self.
But only after being told.
And
I want to point that out. He was fine until the dude told him that's why. Then he
right,
just immediately poofs back into Harry Griswold.
he's like, "Oh yeah, you're right."
Oh, that's what? Oh, damn, another rule.
Yeah, but this part's amazing too. So as Harry, the regular detective guy, he just freaking shoots him through the head. He shoots Rembrandt, the guy that
With
kidnapped
the wig, which
Lotus.
he took off in the beginning of the fight, mind you.
Right, and he just put it
No, he
back
didn't.
on.
He kept it off. And
No?
when he took it off,
Okay.
that's when you see his actual hair was like in a whole bunch of little ponytails. And for anyone that's ever seen In Living Color with Jim Carrey, I think it was Vera something, Vera Milo something. I'd have to
Mhm.
look it up. But uh, it's just all these little ponytails on the top of his head, like for no fucking reason. Again, it's one of those, oh, ha ha ha, this is going to be a big joke. But wow, this is really weird. Like, the wig
Right.
alone was weird enough, but then you have to go and put that under there. I think it would have been better if he was just bald.
I just want to argue that I think regular Harry Griswold is a better crime stopper than
He was a
Kabuki
pretty good
Man.
shot.
It was a great shot, and he put an end to him at that moment. No more Rembrandt. Regular Kabuki Man couldn't do that without like games and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's true.
But yeah. So like after that, he goes to save Lotus and like stop the prophecy that she's been talking about. I forget the whole quote that she says, something about I don't know, the dragon, the moon, or whatever. I don't know. Dragon has to go through a constellation, and the monkey has to ride the jaguar, and the tiger has to eat the bile, or whatever. And yeah. So they kind of go through that. He goes there with the ragtag monkey, and so they're like a little crime-fighting duo for a second. And of course, the monkey's doing his weird gremlin speech.
He arms
But
the
this
monkey
is
also. He gives the monkey a gun.
That's right. He gives the monkey a gun. He's like, "Here you go."
Yeah, I'll take these guys. You go around the other side and take those guys.
Yeah, I forgot about that completely. So this is where you finally find out that the main evil guy is what the prophecy is calling the evil one, and he starts like completing the prophecy or whatever. And because the dragon goes through the weird constellation thing, he starts transforming into this like worm monster, like this cocoon, which I think is really similar to the monsters in the Guyver
Mm-hmm.
movies. Super underrated movies, but the monsters are basically the same. Really grotesque kind of monsters, real squishy. Um, yeah, and I just want to say they could have killed him right there
Yeah,
as a
but
cocoon.
somehow Harry got shoved into. Not even shoved. It wasn't a shove. It was like a bump. He got bumped into by another officer, and then he
Right.
very gently fell onto his butt, and then just
Right.
laid backwards on the ground. And apparently that was enough to knock him out. I guess he was just tired.
Lotus was shaking him like, "Wake up, wake up." His eyes were awake, or his eyes were
Well, he
open.
thought he'd have been out of frame. The
Oh,
projector
okay.
probably said, "Don't worry, you're not in frame."
Right. I saw his eyes look at the camera like
Yep.
twice. So the evil one is transforming. He emerges from his cocoon, and I hope that you put this in the images for the movie, or
Oh, you
for the
already know I
video. But
will.
he, okay, well he has quite an interesting figure. He has two hands,
With heads on them.
like he has two hands with heads on them, bright red hair, like fangs in his mouth, and also just casually a worm dick.
Yeah. It's about foot and a half long, diameter of about 4 inches, overall
It's
circumference maybe
pretty
12
thick.
inches. I don't know. It was a thick boy.
And so when his voice changes too, and he says something that I have written down in my notes here, hoopa duper. Oh yeah, because the dragon part of the prophecy is the dragon has to go through the circle of Jupiter or something. But he says hoopa duper.
Yeah, for some reason in the editing, and I'm going to just say that this was an accident, they altered the pitch of his voice lower to sound more monstrous, but then somebody, I guess, sped it up too fast to make it sound normal, but they sped it up
Hmm.
just too fast, and he was basically like that person at the end of a commercial for a new drug where they got to say all the legal mumbo jumbo in like 2 seconds. That's what it
Right.
sounded like.
He's like, haha, the dragon has passed through the hoopa
And
duper.
that's probably half speed of how he said it.
Yeah. And so a part of the prophecy is also the monkey has to ride the jaguar, right? So it just so happens that the evil one, when he was a human, he owned a jaguar vehicle, and this other dude, one of the fat cop, part of the fat cop skinny cop duo, he's like stress eating all these donuts. It's very surreal. He just keeps shoving them in his mouth, and what ends up happening is so Lotus sees her pet monkey, Toyota, get into the Jaguar, the vehicle, and she runs over there like, "Bad monkey, you mustn't ride the Jaguar." So Kabuki Man, he gets his powers back by kissing Lotus, and
And
that's the
Kabuki's all
love.
over the place again.
Right, Kabuki's all over again. He gets his powers back because of love or whatever. Starts wrestling with the evil one. Lotus simultaneously takes Toyota from the inside of the driver's seat of the vehicle, scolds him for even trying to drive the Jaguar because it's part of the prophecy, and the evil one just fucking explodes.
Uh, right after Kabuki Man says, haha, the monkey did not ride the jaguar. Oh, he didn't? Okay, bye. Boom.
And yeah, the evil one just explodes. And then you hear the Scooby Doo noises again.
And then the theme
And
song.
yeah, right. It's like a fever dream.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. That was a very good analogy for that. It is exactly like a fever dream. You're sitting there, your brain is being baked at about 105 degrees Fahrenheit. You're hallucinating. You're hearing
Right.
voices. You're seeing this, and then you are
Yeah.
awoken later after the credits, and
Right.
you're being told, "Hey,
Yeah.
so welcome to the hospital. You're in ICU. You have been having a 105-degree temperature for at least a week. We're pretty sure you have some sort of brain damage. How do you
Right. You
feel?"
definitely have
And then
brain
you go,
damage. Right.
"Kabuki Man Sanjo."
And as the credits begin to roll, like right before it ends, you see the Kabuki Man symbol made out of stars in the sky.
Just like Batman would.
Yep. But that's it, really. That's Kabuki Man.
Yeah, and again, it's probably sounding like I've been shitting on it a lot. I mean, it's worth a watch if you're into these kind of super horrible, they're good kind of movies.
So bad
I
it's
mean, it's
good.
really worth just seeing what we're talking about. Like it's kind of like, hey, I kind of want to see what they're talking about. Like you really ought to know if we've piqued your interest. It's worth, maybe if you got some friends and you just really want to torture them with this kind of movie. But
Yeah. It's great. It's one of those ones where even though you've seen it 1,000 times, you're still gonna watch it, just because you want to see everyone else's reaction to every crazy scene.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely watching it with others to watch their reaction. It's a live reaction type thing. That it's worth doing that.
Right, I get
Yeah,
that.
it's definitely worth that. And then again, I mean, we're gonna probably watch the Toxic
Toxic
Avenger since it is done by the
Avenger!
same director. We'll definitely. And I've looked up a trailer for that. I've not heard or seen of this until you told me, but it actually looks pretty good. It looks in the like exact same fashion of this movie, but actually done better. So maybe they did this one first. I don't know how it lines up chronologically,
Oh, they definitely
but
did.
it looks like they kind of worked out the kinks with how to do it in that
Right.
style.
So Kabukiman came out in 1990, and I believe that Toxic Avenger came out in the
I could
80s.
totally find out right now. It's gonna be Toxic Avenger.
And I just think it's
Yep,
fascinating
84.
that Lloyd Kaufman. Oh, okay, good. Yeah. I think it's interesting that Lloyd Kaufman is still kind of making current movies.
Yeah.
And he made a movie in 2020 called Shakespeare Shitstorm, and I think we might have to watch that one.
Called
So,
what?
Shakespeare's Shitstorm. It could possibly be a COVID movie. Who knows?
Oh.
He had a lot of time on his hands,
Hmm.
decided to make a movie. COVID was the lockdown was 2020, wasn't it?
Uh, into 2019, beginning of 2020. Yeah.
Okay, so this was a COVID movie. I'm sure of it.
Oh, well,
But yeah.
here's a little tidbit. So I don't know if I'm just when I was trying to look up for the date of Toxic Avenger, uh, Peter Dinklage is gonna star in a reboot, a supposed reboot. I
What?
know how the fuck's that gonna work?
No way. He's really hit all-time lows if that's what it is.
Probably because he looks like Toxic Avenger in the face. I don't know. I'm just messing. But yeah, thank you
Yeah.
guys. Thanks for joining us on this. Sorry we haven't put out one recently. We're trying to get back into the swing of things. You know, holidays and everything kind of coming around. But anything else?
Oh no, just next time that we do one, it's going to be Toxic Avenger.
Maybe we might do one before that one. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks guys.
Bye
Bye.
bye.